Welcome in the arena. My name is Allyson Klein. We are coming to you from the AI Infra Conference in Santa Clara, California. And it's another Data Insights episode, which means I'm with Jeniece Wnorowski. Hey, Jeniece, how's it going?
Hey, Allyson, it's going great. It's good to be here.
We have had such a busy week talking to everyone across the value chain, silicon suppliers, folks who are building infrastructure systems, running data centers, and the practitioners that are bringing AI to life inside of organizations. It's so exciting. We're turning the lens a little bit with this interview. I'm excited. Why don't you introduce the topic and our guest?
Yeah, I'm actually real excited about this topic because it's a hot one. When you think about benchmarking, you know, with AI, it's like, where do you go? So today we actually have David Kanter from the founder of MLCommons, as well as MLPerf. So welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was so excited to have you included in our AI Infra suite, if you want to think about it that way. And I know you've been on Tech Arena before, and we've engaged for a very long time together. But why don't you just go ahead and introduce your role, your background in the industry, because it's fascinating, and what is going on with MLCommons, because there's a lot.
Yeah. So, I guess for context, my background is semiconductors, things that compute, for a long time. And then I had the pleasure of wandering into one of the first MLPerf meetings. And it was an all-volunteer project. We all came together, focused around the importance of getting honest, reproducible, representative performance measurables. And so I started out as the group secretary. And, then when we decided to create MLCommons to house it, I booted it up as the first executive director, grew it to 20 people. And now I get to just focus on MLPerf as AI performance has become like a broader, more multifaceted challenge, really. So it's, our mission is to make AI better for everyone. And that means we want it to be faster and more capable. We want it to be more energy efficient. We want it to also be safer, more accurate. And so what are the things that we can do there? And MLPerf is really the marquee project when it comes to establishing and helping guide the industry as well as measure faster and more energy efficient AI performance.
Excellent. Having been in storage myself a long time, I've always noticed, especially now, storage isn't the thing that bubbles up when you're looking at AI, particularly when it comes to benchmarking. So can you tell us, why is storage now more than ever becoming so central as organizations scale their AI environments?
Yeah. So, I think it's a good call out that, so first of all, I think of AI performance as a full system problem. Everything from, the NAND flash hard drives and transistors that we use to build the systems out of, all the way up to the software, the data as well that we're using. And, I think, to your point, storage has been overlooked in many cases. And at least the story of MLPerf storage began with a couple of folks talking at one of our community meetings, and someone had mentioned that they knew of a very large cluster for compute that had been stood up by a customer, and they couldn't get more than 30% utilization because their storage couldn't pace. And, that was like the aha moment. And I'm like, hey, this is a problem, right? These are companies that have like outstanding teams of engineers, and they're running into these road bumps, but they're ahead of the rest of the industry. They're ahead of the enterprise. They're ahead of traditional customers. So to me, this was a call to like, okay, we should make a benchmark to fill this gap. And some of our other advisors, Devo Dutta from Nutanix, some of the other folks, we kind of came together and said, okay, this is a gap we can help to fill, to help people understand how does storage play a role in AI, and how can you make sure that we're focusing in the right way.
Now, you've been around compute for a very long time, and obviously you've been in MLCommons since its inception, so you know how these benchmarks are evolving. How do you see the response from the storage industry as you've taken this on, and where do you think that goes in terms of evolution of the way people are thinking about the solutions in the space?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that was honestly very thrilling to me, earlier this year we had, I think, our third round of MLPerf storage results, and we had 26 submitters.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a record for us. It was the largest number of submitters we had up until that point. and it was just topped by the MLPerf inference group yesterday, which got 27 submitters.
Okay, there you go.
So huge popularity. And I think one of the things that's been very interesting is just, the rate of change in AI is so rapid. And we've seen that in our benchmarks too. We started out focusing on what does data ingestion for training look like. We added what does checkpointing look like? Because when you're doing at-scale training, failures happen. And your ability to recover swiftly, to get that, thousands of accelerators back on track, how quickly did you write that checkpoint out? How quickly did you read it back? And that's time on the clock.
Yeah, sure.
And, we're even seeing more evolution where, now we're seeing storage starting to play a role in inference. And so, just as AI becomes more and more challenging, I think we see, oftentimes say, compute and storage and networking are sort of the three legs of the stool. We're seeing every leg of the stool getting some pressure.
That's true.
I mean, so with that, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges? We often hear a lot about these challenges in large-scale AI training, when it comes to resiliency and system reliability. But how does storage play into those challenges?
Yeah, well, so, first of all, right, when you think about reliability, storage, right, that's where you want your data to reside. That's where you want your checkpoints to reside. And so storage is an integral element of your reliability story. And when you think about just, again, the full system, everyone does training slightly differently. And so for some people, they're just pulling raw data off of storage. Sometimes they're pulling data off and doing a lot of transformations. And so there might be a compute intense aspect to the storage before you get to the main training. And one of the things we did was we sort of surveyed the field before we built the benchmarks, and there's just massive variety. But one of the ways to think about it is this era of AI, if you look back to 2011 with AlexNet, with ImageNet, the core observation is that if you add more data, at some point, the quality or the intelligence, if you want to put it that way, starts going up, right? And so we need more and more and more data. Well, that data has to live somewhere, right? So that's just one of the many ways that storage comes into play.
Now, you mentioned the 26 vendors that participated in your last benchmark. What's interesting when you look at the solutions is that people are taking such vast approaches. Some folks are looking at local NVMe, some are looking at software-defined solutions. How do you view the diversity in the marketplace, and what does that say about innovation?
The diversity is actually truly astounding. And while I would say I know a bit about storage, as you pointed out, my core expertise is on the compute side. And so, when we started out in storage, like one of the principal tenets of MLPerf is we're not prescriptive. There is no right answer.
Right.
For some people, they want file storage. For some people, they want object storage. And those are all valid solutions. And sort of realizing the consequences of that and just how many different solutions out there was really quite eye-opening to me. And it's just many people build their infrastructure differently for different purposes. Even within, you might start out, as I did, saying, hey, maybe all the self-driving car companies, maybe their systems all look kind of similar. Turns out not the case at all. No, and it's like they're all so different. And so I think that just speaks to both the beauty and the challenge, which is if you want to build a good benchmark, you have to be very opinionated, very inclusive. But it does let everyone show off what they want to do, but those degrees of freedom can also make it a bit challenging.
I have a follow-on question. You've got that diversity. You just talked about some people want this, some people want that. Then should they look at those storage benchmarks as not, who got the highest performance, which is the way I historically think about benchmarks, is where's the solution set that I'm looking for, and what can I learn about them from their performance?
Yeah, I think actually the latter view is really the more informative and valuable. Certainly higher scores are better, but one of the things that I think is very interesting about MLPerf is it's not denominated necessarily in who gets the best bandwidth, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're looking, the core idea of MLPerf storage is how do we look at the storage for an overall system without needing the compute one?
Right.
So how can we look at the storage you might need for 10,000 accelerators without having to buy 10,000 accelerators? But the name of the game here is we're going to go train a network. How do we keep those 10,000 accelerators sufficiently? So how do you right-size the storage? And I think that is what we set out to do. And I think that's what we accomplished. And, like all benchmarks, like all projects, I think there's a bunch of things we did really right. And I think the popularity of the benchmark speaks to that. And there are always things that we're going to implement,
Right.
as well as adding in more workloads.
Nice.
So, collaboration does seem to be a big part of MLCommons DNA. How do partnerships differ within organizations, and how does that shape ultimately the broader AI community?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in general, I think one of the biggest strengths of MLCommons is being able to bring everyone together under one roof, where you have very divergent products, very divergent product strategies, architectures, and views, and try to synthesize out of that something that is fair, reproducible, and representative, right on the benchmarking side. And it's a vehicle for learning for everyone as well. The benchmarks, I think, help vendors understand strengths and weaknesses and exposes some of the challenges that they're going to have. I mean, to me, one of the most beautiful stories was someone who came back to us from a different MLPerf benchmark, and they were just thrilled at some of the problems that they found. And so for them, they said, hey, whatever the score on the benchmark is, doesn't matter. But what matters is that we learn a ton that we are going to translate into improvements for our customers. And that to them, more important than anything. Because ultimately, it's about how do we work together to make AI better for everyone? How do we bring those capabilities to more people, to more areas? I live in San Francisco. We have Waymos all over the place.
Right.
And I can tell you, as a bicyclist, they feel much safer.
Interesting.
How can we, and that's just one instance of the magic of AI, right? There's other things, medical technology, hear about better detection of tumors. How can we make that more common, bring and enrich society in that way? And we have to do it all together.
You took me back to when I was in the industry, and we would get MLPerf results in, and we would immediately go into a conference room and dissect where the gaps are and what we needed to do next. It's very visceral and it's very real. And I'm sure that companies from across the industry are living the same experience every time you publish results. What do you see the biggest areas of improvement are? And I'm not asking you about any particular company because I know that you don't go there, but when you look at the storage results in particular from the last cycle, how do you see the industry saying, hey, these are the things that we're learning, these are the areas that are our North Stars in terms of reaching for what customers need?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think one is, first of all, keeping pace with the advances in compute and the evolutions of workloads, right? Which is, and this is one of those more subtle things, which is if you're buying storage today for an accelerator today, that's fine. But the accelerators or processors 2 years from now will process the same amount of data much more quickly. And so, if your storage is right-sized today, it may actually be a little bit slower in the future. And so there's always this, how do we keep pace of that while staying accurate and true to our roots? How do we stay up with all the different ways that AI is stressing on storage? And just, a very, very simple example is, I think today it's now very widely established. Everyone, when you go to deploy AI for inference, people are looking at KV caching, at disaggregated inference, and there's a role that storage can play there. That wasn't something that people were looking at all when we started MLPerf storage. And even a year ago, I think that was sort of a little bit less common. And so just keeping up with all of that, keeping, 30 odd companies all together, all aligned, moving forward. It's very challenging, but it is also, incredibly rewarding to bring everyone together and build something like this.
That's fantastic.
So looking ahead, kind of with that, where do you see, or what advancements or directions in AI excite you most, and how do you see MLCommons contributing to that future?
Yeah, so certainly this has actually been a really breakout year for us. We just in the last couple months, I was just jotting an email down to the team, and I was describing it as the summer of MLPerf. We talked about MLPerf storage. We also have MLPerf Automotive, which came out very recently, MLPerf Client. And so, part of this is as we're seeing AI being adopted in more and more places, we have to come in and help fill those gaps, And so storage was sort of us working with some storage folks to spot some coming challenges. MLPerf Automotive was sort of in response to the automotive folks saying, okay, we are going to be using more AI, we're making more intelligent vehicles, we need to get our hands around this. And so I just look at this and I say, okay, how do we make our benchmarks better and more mature? Because this is just a new field. Like some of the most established benchmarking organizations that we look up to are 30 years old and they've been honing their craft. We're 7 years old. We're still in grade school.
The babies of benchmarks.
That's right. And, and so there's a lot to learn. And then just keeping a pace of things is, both exciting, a little stressful, and a bit of a challenge. But, bringing everyone together, I think we can call it.
Well, David, I love having you on the show.
Yes.
We've spent times in airports together and at industry conference receptions, and every time we have a conversation, I'm like, oh my God, I walked away with so much knowledge, and I appreciate you coming on Tech Arena. One final thing for you, obviously, MLPerf is so foundational, and everybody that is listening on the show wants to find out more. I can guarantee it. So where do you go to find out the latest from MLCommons and engage with you in particular?
Yeah. So you can find me online. I am the Kanter on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. MLCommons.org is the place to go. And, to your point, MLPerf is one of our exciting projects. There are a lot of other things we do around data. How do we standardize making data accessible to AI?
Yeah, that's huge.
Super exciting. How do we make AI more reliable and responsive to what humans want? And so there's a ton of projects we have at MLCommons. And I always say to anyone, if any of these resonate with you, please show up. Like, we are a community of volunteers. It came together with a bunch of folks who just saw a problem and said, we all want to solve it together. I started out as a volunteer, and look where I ended up.
Yeah.
One day you two could be invited.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And Jeniece, that wraps another edition of Data Insights. So thank you, Jeniece. Thank you, David, for both being on the show.
And thank you so much. And thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you, Allyson. Thank you, Dave.